Lawrenceburg, and the myth I'm going to bust is if buttered toast lands butter side down when it is being dropped. So over here is the toaster oven that I toast my bread with, and I set the function at toast, the temperature all the way to the toast option, and then I just turned it on. After that, I took a piece of bread and stuck it into the toaster oven and timed it for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, I set the toast out for it to cool for about a minute and then placed 1 tablespoon of butter on all 4 pieces of the toast. After that, I came over here and used this measuring tape to measure out in feet 4 different spots at which I was going to drop my toast. I measured at 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, and 8 feet. While I do the experiment, I will also be timing in seconds how long it takes for the toast to drop and land on the ground. I will record all the time and what side the toast lands on this chart next to the correct heights. So initially I had thought about several different ways to perform this experiment. I thought about maybe using different toast or even the amount of butter that I would put on the toast. But after doing different research, I noticed that none of that really had mattered except the fact that where the toast was being dropped at. So that's what I came up with, different heights at which the toast should be dropped at. And as seen over there at where I prepared the toast, the bread, the amount of butter, the time at which the toast was in the toaster oven, and the time allowed for it to cool is all held at a constant. And for my hypothesis, I believe that the higher the toast is dropped, the better chance it has at landing butter side down. Toasty. When looking at the different myths that our professor had posted for us to bust, I thought this was a very interesting myth as I've never even heard of this myth. So I thought it'd be really fun to kind of look at some history and some previous studies on it and kind of get a background about it. So when I looked at the history of buttered toast always landing butter side down after it falls is an idiom representing pessimistic outlooks. And pessimistic outlooks means to see the worst aspect of things or believe that the worst will happen. So when I started looking a little further deeper, it started in the 19th century, and it came across kind of with a poem by James Payn that said, "I never had a slice of bread, particularly large or wide, that did not fall upon the floor and always on the butter side." I thought this was very interesting. It was to look at this in a pessimistic way, but if you think about it, if your toast falls down and it lands butter side down, you have to throw it away. Whereas if it landed butter side up, there would still be a better chance of you still being able to eat it. So then when I dug a little deeper and look at the different studies, in 1991, a TV series called QED did a study on if buttered toast lands butter side up, and half of the time it did land butter side down, but it was tossed in the air rather than dropped. So then later in 1996, Robert Matthews did another experiment where he simply just dropped the toast down, and half the time it landed butter side down, or more than half it landed butter side down. So I thought that was really interesting, and I just wanted to see how it would be from different heights, as when I did this research, I did see that it didn't matter how much butter you put on it, the way the gravity pulls it, it would still land butter side down. As for the pop culture aspect of the buttered toast myth, In 2010, there was a movie done called Devil. It was where a group of adults were stuck in an elevator, and they used jelly toast to determine if the devil was near or not. And when it was dropped, if it landed jelly side down, that meant the devil was in their presence. So it was a very interesting myth to look up and find research and the history on it, because I did not know this was an actual myth. We got this bread. Decided that I was going to do 3 trials at each height. This is trial number 1 for 2 feet. It took 0.41 seconds and landed butter side up. This is trial number 2 at 2 feet. That one took 0.62 seconds and landed butter side up. This is trial number 3 at 2 feet. It took 0.4 seconds and landed butter side up. We are now at 4 feet, and this is trial number 1. It took 0.79 seconds and landed butter side up. Trial number 2 at 4 feet. It took 0.75 seconds and landed butter side up. Trial number 3 at 4 feet. It took 0.69 seconds and landed butter side up. We are now at 6 feet. This is trial number 1. It took 0.8 seconds and landed butter side up. This is trial number 2 at 6 feet. It took 0.93 seconds and landed butter side up. This is trial number 3 at 6 feet. It took 0.9 seconds and landed butter side up. Now at 8 feet, and this is trial number 1. It took 1.18 seconds and landed butter side up. This is trial number 2 at 8 feet. It took 1.1 seconds and landed butter side up. This is trial number 3 at 8 feet. It took 1.14 seconds and landed butter side up. These are my results. So at 2 feet, the average time was 0.47 seconds, and throughout all the trials, the buttered toast landed butter side up. At 4 feet, the average time was 0.74 seconds, and at each trial, it landed butter side up. At 6 feet, the average time was 8.87 seconds, and all of the toast landed butter side up. And at 8 feet, the average time was 1.2 seconds, and all the toast landed butter side up. So as you can see, throughout all 3 trials at all 4 heights, the toast always landed butter side up, and the myth of toast landing butter side down when being dropped is busted and is not true. But at least throughout this whole experiment, I have a good tasty snack. I would just like to state that the seconds in which it took for the toast to drop to the ground didn't really have an effect on my experiment. I thought it would be a nice aspect to add to the experiment, but it did not help determine if the toast would land butter side up or butter side down. I would also like to take note that my hypothesis was wrong, and that it does not matter at the height you drop the toast, it will still land butter side up. And finally, just a little note, there were only 12 pieces of bread harmed in the making of this experiment.
Aftermath. Dun dun dun.
I would like to give a special thanks to my parents for lending me a couple dollars for the bread, the lady I live with all the way in Florida for giving me some butter to put on my toast, and my awesome roommate for recording all of my mistakes throughout this experiment. It took 79... Ooh! Hi, I'm Kelsey Sponsberg, and the myth I'm going to bust is if toasted bread... Restart. This is